Hello, my name is Hannah Gagan,
And I'm Rocco D'Amelio.
and we are going to be presenting on the language acquisition theory on cognitivism. Um, First of all, we need to ask what is cognitivism? This is a language acquisition theory that's specifically about learning that emphasizes the process of thinking to formulate their own knowledge by processing information and making connections with information that they already know.
Yeah, here are some key principles of cognitivism. Um, Cognitivism tells us that students learn best when they can connect new ideas to what they already know. This is where schemas or mental frameworks come in. They help learners organize and retrieve information. Effective teaching under this theory includes chunking information into smaller parts, scaffolding learning with support, and helping students develop metacognitive skills or awareness of their own thinking and learning processes.
Yeah, so when we use cognitivism, we are looking at a few things, specifically our cognitive processes that Rocco just mentioned a little bit of. We are specifically looking for students to engage in their attention, the memory, thinking, problem solving, creativity, active engagement, and utilizing stimulus. When we utilize all of those things as educators, we need to frame our lessons and our lesson plans to facilitate this active process through thoughtful engagement, reflection, and consistent feedback from educator to student. How this helps support ELL students is our emphasis on making connections, thinking through our information that's based off of their prior knowledge that they could scaffold into their new knowledge and this new material that they're learning. This theory often also employs conversations with other students to support their brainstorming.
Great. To wrap up this portion of the presentation before we get into the actual lesson, here's some last takeaways of cognitivism. One, it helps us focus on how learning actually happens in the mind. It encourages teaching methods that makes thinking visible by helping students connect, organize, and reflect on what they learn. And for English learners, this means using scaffolds and strategies that build on their strengths and make learning more meaningful and connected.
Awesome. So now we're going to get started with our lesson. Um, for our lesson, we're gearing it towards third grade writing. So this would be a writing assignment that we would be engaging third graders in. They're going to be writing an expository paper, learning how to make those connections step by step. Hello, class. Today, I want you to turn and talk to your table partners and answer this question. What is your favorite sandwich and why? A good sentence starter might be, my favorite sandwich is because you have 2 minutes. Go! This section is where we would allow 2 minutes for students to talk to their neighbors. We'd be walking around, monitoring students, making sure they stay on task, hearing some of their sentences to ensure they are talking to their neighbors in complete sentences, utilizing the sentence starter, and then just hearing what they have to say. After the 2 minutes are up, okay, time is up. Who wants to share their favorite sandwich? And then this portion, we would be taking questions from students. They would raise their hand. You know, one of them would say maybe a ham and cheese or turkey sandwich, or hopefully one of them would say a peanut butter and jelly sandwich, which would help segue us into, well, my favorite sandwich is a PB&J because it's so yummy and so easy to make. PB&J is a short way of saying peanut butter and jelly sandwich. How many of you guys have eaten a peanut butter and jelly sandwich? Waiting for people to raise their hands. How many of you have made a PB&J sandwich? Waiting for them to raise their hands. If we want to tell someone how we make one, we would want to tell them everything that they need to know to make the sandwich. That means we need to include all the ingredients they need, all of the tools they need to use, and the steps in order to make the sandwich the right way. If we don't do that, someone might have all the right ingredients but don't have utensils to utilize the peanut butter or the jelly to put on the bread. So it's really important that we have all the steps.
Yeah. All right, class, let's learn some new words that will help us today. First one is expository. Can you say expository? Expositor.
Expository.
Yes. All right. Expository means writing that explains or tells how to do something, like writing a recipe or directions for a game or even how to build a Lego set. You're teaching someone how to do something step by step. The next word is procedure. Let's say it together. Procedure.
Procedural.
Procedure means the steps to follow in order, just like a checklist. And lastly, stage. Everyone say stage.
Stage.
Stage. Um, Stage means each part or section of a process. Now, do I mean stage like the kind that you perform a song on? No. This kind of stage means each section or part of something you're doing, like the cutting stage or the spreading stage when we make our sandwich. We'll use these words as we plan our writing about making a PB&J sandwich. All right, let's make a peanut butter and jelly sandwich. Let's think it through step by step. What ingredients do you need for your PB&J? What tools do you need? What steps will we take? Take 1 minute to write or draw your ideas on your scratch paper. And it's at this point we would have passed out the scratch paper and we'll allow them 1 minute to just jot their ideas down, whatever they can get done in a minute or so. We'll walk around surveying the class, offering any assistance that anyone might need. And if we're noticing that they're still like going and it's already been a minute, might add a little bit more time. Just whatever the students need. All right. All right. Now let's share our ideas. Talk with your group and compare your steps. Maybe your partner thought of something you missed, like washing your hands first. Add anything new to your list. Writers help each other build better ideas. And then at this point, they're now in collaborative groups. They turn to their neighbors. However, we wanted to set that up, if we wanted to do partners or group discussion. And then this is another opportunity for us to walk around and observe. And then, Hannah, did you want to talk about any more about that? Maybe like the ELL?
Yeah, yeah. So in these moments, it's a good way to like start checking to see like if they're starting to get the ideas, get the concepts. Since we're kind of scaffolding based off of their prior knowledge of doing this activity before, we just want to know that they could synthesize and organize them into the right kinds of ideas. So walking around and making sure that, they have the things that their neighbors are writing down, that they actually have like peanut butter and jelly, or if they're not able to fully write yet, at least like drawings of it. So we'd be looking for, a jar of peanut butter, a jar of jam, bread. a knife, a plate. Maybe they have some hands for washing their hands, hopefully. And we're just looking for active engagement. We're looking for people to make sure that they are just staying consistent and staying engaged with the material. Once we feel like they've done that enough and they've had enough time to share and compare and add ideas, then we would continue on to a full group discussion. So then we'd bring everyone back together and we'd be asking them these questions. So let's make a peanut butter and jelly sandwich together. What ingredients do you need to make a peanut butter and jelly sandwich? At this time, they would be raising their hand. Hopefully, one would say peanut butter, and then we would write down peanut butter on the first bullet. And then jelly, write down jelly. And then bread, and then we write down bread. Now, if we're looking for more details, maybe we could ask, what kind of peanut butter? Do you like crunchy peanut butter or smooth peanut butter? Jelly, do you like grape jelly or strawberry jelly or maybe something else? With bread, what kind of bread do you like? Do you like the crust on your bread? Those just added details and then just write them down. And while you're writing them, hopefully you're getting your students to write down more details as well with that. Continuing on, now that we have all of our ingredients, now we need to know what tools do you need. With the tools, write down, we need a plate to put our stuff on. Maybe we use a paper plate. Maybe we use a regular plate that we get from the dishwasher. Those are extra details that we can add to our tools. But we need a plate. We need a knife, and ooh, who uses jelly with a spoon to scoop it out? Some people might raise their hand. I do. Who uses a knife? So maybe you need two knives, or maybe you need one knife and one spoon. Whichever way that you want to make your sandwich is right. I think that's an important note to tell your students is this is how you make the best peanut butter and jelly sandwich. So whatever tools that you need to succeed, this is you making it. This is how to make the best one. Continuing on, once we know what all the tools are and what all the ingredients are, now we need to know the steps that you take. So first, you gather all of your ingredients. You get your plate, you get your spoon and your knife, you get your bread, you get your strawberry jam, you get your peanut butter, but then you have to scoop out each peanut butter, scoop out the jelly, spread it up onto the bread and then squish them together. Then maybe this is where you add more details. Do you cut off the crust? Do you cut it in half and make them into little triangles? Um, Asking for those peer student responses as a group share, and then kind of helping them brainstorm different ideas to add more detail to their writing. Now, students, what is this all about? Well, writing, of course. When we want to share how to create something, we need to write a step-by-step procedure. We call this writing an expository paper. Can everyone say expository?
Expository.
Expository. Awesome. Good job. When we write an expository paper, we need to think about a few things. One, we need a really good hook. We need to introduce our paper to our readers. And having a good hook is going to help pull our readers in to want to read our paper. Then we need to think to ourselves, what procedure do we need the reader to follow? So this is all of the steps, all of the ingredients, everything that we were just talking about that go all together to create our body. The body of our paper is supposed to talk about each stage, so hopefully with details. Details are like not just saying, peanut butter, jelly, on bread, squish it together, and that's it. We want more to it. To make it more interesting for readers, we want to tell them what kind of peanut butter, what kind of jelly, other important details that makes your peanut butter and jelly sandwich unique. And then once we're done with our body paragraphs, then we need to make sure to end your paper with a retelling of your main idea. This is how to make an awesome peanut butter and jelly sandwich. This ending should make your reader excited, and maybe hopefully they would want to make a peanut butter and jelly sandwich just the way you taught them. All in all, we got to get all of our thoughts now into a good organized way to start writing our paper. So, how do we do this? We use a graphic organizer. First, at the very top, you'll be getting these papers that have a big old square at the top. This is where I want you to write your introduction. What is the paper about? What is the paper about, guys? Can anyone tell me? Hopefully, one would raise their hand and say, about making a PB&J sandwich. And we'd say, oh, yes, of course. And to do that, we need to make sure that we have what? A really good hook that brings our reader into the story. Once we have a really good introduction, then we can start working on the steps. We have three different areas, and I have written right here on each section how you can start each of those paragraphs. First, you gather all of your ingredients. That first area should probably be what you need to get. Next is probably going to talk more about how you put it all together, how you take the sandwich bread, take the PB&J and spread it on there and squish it together. And then the last part is where you talk about those extra details about how you make your sandwich unique. How do you cut the sandwich? Do you cut the sandwich? Do you slice off those crusts or do you keep them on? Once you have all of those ideas written into the organizer, then you can write down your conclusion. Again, your conclusion is just supposed to be a way where you can say your main idea again, but in a different way. We don't want to just copy what we have in the introduction and put it in the bottom. We want to make it interesting still for our reader. Remember, this should be the part that makes them the most excited about making a PB&J sandwich. It's at this point where, while we're walking around guiding students that are more proficient with language, that they work on their own. But then we pull in our pre-emergent and emergent students to do a sentence strip activity. This is where we'll have all of those different parts of how to make a PB&J sandwich into little sentence strips. And then what we would do with them is we would help work on making these steps in the right order. Maybe some of them have words, one or two words on it to make it simplified. Some could have pictures on it to support or scaffold their word knowledge. But we want to make sure that they are putting things in the right order. Once they have the sentence strips in the right order, they can actually still utilize the graphic organizer and just glue it in the right spots. So then we're checking for their understanding. Um, Hopefully, with that, then they would have a robust knowledge of how to organize a expository paper while still learning the language.
All right. At this point, we'll bring the whole class back together. And this is like our segue into the closure for this lesson. Um, all right, class. Now let's think about our learning. Why is it important to plan before we write? And then hopefully we get some hands. And then if not, we can rephrase the question to offer some more engagement. But we're looking for something along the lines of, so we know where we're going, like when we're writing, something like that. Yeah. So we know where we're going when we're writing, and we have a plan. And if we don't have a plan, it might take a really long time to figure out where we want to go. And then, we might go one way and realize we want to change it. Just something to like, bridge that gap to real life scenarios. Next question. What happens if we forget a step? And then again, we wait for answers and then call on them. Right. If we miss a step, the directions don't make any sense. So just another one where we can connect that to a real life lesson to, if we're ever making steps to something, to be very clear when we do it. And then I'd finish off by saying, when we plan carefully, we make sure our readers can follow along and understand our ideas. It's cool. And you all did amazing today. You used your brains to organize information, build on what you knew, and explain your thinking clearly. Next time, we'll take our organizer and turn it into a full paragraph. And that is our closure right there.
Well, yeah, thank you guys so much.
Thank you.